The coffee was always bitter at Whitmore Air Force Base in Nevada, but Technical Sergeant Emma Chun had learned to appreciate its consistency. At 0530 hours, she was already 3 cups deep, hunched over a maintenance terminal in Hangar 12, her fingers dancing across keyboards that most pilots couldn't even identify. Around her, the pre-dawn darkness was pierced by the occasional roar of jets taking off for training missions, but Emma barely noticed anymore. This was her world, the invisible machinery that kept America's finest aircraft in the sky. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Chun, you missed a hydraulic pressure reading on Falcon 7, Master Sergeant Jake Morrison from across the hangar floor. His voice carried the authority of someone who'd been fixing jets since before Emma was born, but there was no malice in it. Morrison understood that perfection wasn't just a goal in their line of work. It was the difference between pilots coming home and becoming statistics. Emma didn't look up from her screen. Hydraulic pressure on Falcon 7 was 3,847 psi at 515 hours, well within operational parameters. The slight fluctuation you're seeing is normal thermal expansion as the system warms up. She finally glanced over, noting the slight smile on Morrison's weathered face. He'd been testing her again, something he did with all the new technicians. The difference was that Emma never failed his tests. Whitmore Air Force Base sat in the high desert of Nevada, a sprawling complex of runways and hangars that officially didn't exist on most maps. The F-22 Raptors based here were part of the 477th Fighter Wing, an elite unit responsible for testing experimental aircraft systems and training pilots for missions that required capabilities beyond conventional warfare. Emma had been assigned here 18 months ago, fresh out of technical school, with recommendations that bordered on unbelievable. She had scored perfect marks on every mechanical aptitude test the Air Force could devise. Her instructors claimed she could diagnose engine problems by listening to audio recordings. During her final examination, she had identified a microscopic crack in a turbine blade that had escaped detection by 3 senior mechanics in 2 computer diagnostic systems. When questioned about how she'd found it, Emma had simply said the engine sounded wrong during a routine test run. The other technicians respected her abilities, but they also found her slightly unsettling. Emma could memorize technical manuals and single readings and spot problems in aircraft systems that shouldn't have been visible to the human eye. She worked longer hours than anyone else, often staying until well past midnight to perfect maintenance procedures on aircraft she wasn't even assigned to service. When pressed about her dedication, she would simply say that pilots deserved equipment they could trust completely. What her colleagues didn't know was that Emma spent her off-duty hours in the base's flight simulator, having gained access through a friendship with Airman First Class Tyler Brooks in the training division. Brooks, a lanky kid from Oklahoma with dreams of becoming a pilot himself, had noticed Emma's intense interest in aircraft performance and had started sneaking her into the simulator after hours. What he discovered was that Emma Chun didn't just understand how aircraft worked, she could fly them with an intuition that bordered on supernatural. "You sure you never had flight training?" Brooks had asked after watching Emma execute a perfect carrier landing simulation on her 3rd attempt. Most rookie pilots needed dozens of tries to master that particular maneuver. "Just what I learned from technical manuals," Emma had replied. But her answer didn't explain the way. She seemed to anticipate the aircraft's responses before the computer could calculate them. She flew like someone who had been born in a cockpit, making split-second decisions that veteran pilots struggled to achieve after years of training. The truth was more complicated than Emma let on. Growing up in San Francisco as the daughter of an aircraft mechanic father and an aerospace engineer mother, she had been surrounded by aviation from birth. Her childhood had been spent in hangars and workshops, learning to identify aircraft by their engine sounds before she could read. Her parents, both immigrants from Taiwan who had built successful careers in American aerospace, had encouraged her technical interests, while secretly hoping she might pursue engineering or pilot training. But Emma's path to the military had been shaped by tragedy. During her senior year of high school, her older brother Michael, a Marine Corps pilot, had been killed when his F/A-18 Hornet experienced mechanical failure during a training exercise. The official investigation concluded that a faulty sensor had provided incorrect readings to the pilot, causing him to make a fatal error in judgment. Emma had read every page of that investigation report, memorizing technical details that most people couldn't comprehend. She had enlisted in the Air Force with a single goal: to ensure that mechanical failures never again cost pilots their lives because someone had missed a crucial detail during maintenance. Her superiors saw a dedicated technician with exceptional abilities. They never suspected that she viewed every aircraft she serviced as a memorial to her brother's memory. The morning routine at Whitmore was as precise as the aircraft they maintained. Emma checked each of her assigned F-22s with methodical thoroughness, recording readings that would be analyzed by engineers at the Pentagon. The Raptor was the most advanced fighter aircraft in the world, capable of speeds exceeding Mach 2 and maneuvers that defied conventional understanding of aerodynamics. Each aircraft represented an investment of over $400 million and contained technology that foreign governments would kill to possess. Emma's responsibilities included monitoring avionics systems, calibrating weapons targeting equipment, and ensuring that every component met specifications that were measured in tolerances smaller than human hair. It was detailed work that required absolute concentration, but she found it meditative. When her hands were busy with familiar tools and her mind was focused on technical problems, she could temporarily forget the empty chair at her family's dinner table. "Chun, report to Colonel Patricia Hayes' office at 0800 hours," announced Staff Sergeant Lisa Park, the squadron's administrative coordinator. Park's tone was neutral, but Emma noticed the slight tension around her eyes. Being summoned to the wing commander's office was rarely routine, especially for enlisted maintenance personnel. Colonel Hayes was a legend at Whitmore, one of the first women to command an F-22 squadron and a pilot whose skills were spoken of in reverent tones throughout the Air Force. She had flown combat missions over Iraq and Afghanistan, accumulating more flight hours in advanced aircraft than most pilots saw in entire careers. Hayes was also known for her exacting standards and her intolerance for anything that compromised mission effectiveness. Emma knocked on the colonel's door at precisely 0800 hours, her uniform pressed to perfection and her mind racing through possible reasons for the meeting. She had double-checked her work records that morning and found no errors, no missed deadlines, no complaints from pilots or fellow technicians. "Enter," came Hayes' crisp voice from behind the door. The colonel's office was spartanly decorated, with only a few framed photographs showing Hayes with various aircraft and military dignitaries. Behind her desk hung a map of the world marked with pins indicating bases where she had served. Emma noticed that several pins were placed in locations that didn't correspond to any publicly acknowledged military installations. "Technical Sergeant." "Chun, please sit down," Hayes said, gesturing to a chair across from her desk. The colonel was younger than Emma had expected, probably in her early 40s, with graying hair pulled back in a regulation bun and eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of Emma's appearance and demeanor. "Ma'am, if this is about the maintenance schedules, I can explain the extended service times on." Hayes held up a hand, cutting off Emma's explanation. "This isn't about your maintenance work, Sergeant. Your performance in that area has been exemplary. Your efficiency ratings are the highest we've recorded for a technician at your experience level." Emma felt a mixture of relief and confusion. If her work wasn't the issue, she couldn't imagine why the wing commander would want to speak with her personally. I've been reviewing your file, Hayes continued, opening a folder on her desk. Your technical scores are remarkable, but I'm more interested in some unofficial reports I've been receiving. It seems you've been spending considerable time in our flight simulators. Emma's stomach dropped. She hadn't realized that her after-hours activities with Brooks had been noticed by anyone in authority. Ma'am, I can explain. Airman Brooks was just showing me how the systems I maintain actually function in flight operations. I thought understanding the pilot's perspective would make me a better technician. Hayes leaned back in her chair, studying Emma with an expression that revealed nothing. Sergeant Chun, how many hours would you estimate you've logged in hour? Simulators? The question caught Emma off guard. She had never kept precise records of her simulator time, viewing it as informal education rather than training. I'm not sure, ma'am. Maybe 40 or 50 hours over the past year. According to the computer logs, you've accumulated 347 hours of simulator time in the past 18 months, Hayes said, consulting her folder. That's more than some of our newer pilots logged during their initial training phase. More interesting is your performance data. Emma felt heat rising in her cheeks. She had known the simulators kept detailed records, but she hadn't realized anyone was monitoring her activities. Your scores indicate flying ability that typically requires years of formal training to achieve, Hayes continued. Perfect instrument. Approaches, textbook combat maneuvers, aerial refueling procedures that most pilots struggle with for months. Care to explain how a maintenance technician develops such advanced flying skills? The question hung in the air between them. Emma realized that her answer could significantly impact her military career, but she also understood that Colonel Hayes was too experienced to be satisfied with evasions or half-truths. Mama, I've been around aircraft my entire life. My father worked on commercial jets, my mother designed avionics systems, and my brother. Emma paused, the familiar ache of loss tightening her chest. My brother was a Marine pilot. I learned by watching, listening, and studying everything I could about how aircraft really work, not just the technical specifications. Hayes nodded, slowly making notes in Emma's file. I'm sorry about your brother's loss. I read about the incident in your background check. That kind of tragedy often shapes people's career motivations. Yes, ma'am. I want to make sure mechanical failures never cost pilots their lives, because someone missed something during maintenance. A noble goal, Hayes agreed. But I suspect you've discovered that you have talents beyond maintenance work. Emma met the colonel's gaze directly. I enjoy understanding how all the systems work together, ma'am. The simulators help me see the big picture. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Hayes closed the folder and leaned forward. Sergeant Chen, I'm going to ask you a hypothetical question, and I want you to answer honestly. If you could choose any position in the Air Force, regardless of your current classification or training, background, what would it be? The question struck Emma like a physical blow. She had spent 18 months carefully avoiding thinking about the answer, focusing instead on the technical work that honored her brother's memory while keeping her safely on the ground. But in Colonel Hayes' office, faced with a direct question from a superior officer, she couldn't maintain the fiction anymore. I'd want to be a pilot, ma'am, she said quietly. I'd like to fly the aircraft I maintain. Hayes smiled for the first time during their conversation. I thought you might say that. Here's the problem, Sergeant Chen. You're already too experienced as a technician, too valuable in your current role, and frankly too old for our standard pilot training programs. The Air Force has invested considerable resources in your technical education, and your skills are critically needed in maintenance operations. Emma felt something inside her chest collapse. She had expected this answer, but hearing it stated so clearly still hurt more than she had anticipated. However, Hayes Continued, there are other programs, other opportunities for someone with your particular combination of skills. Programs that most people don't know exist, that operate with different rules and different requirements. Emma looked up sharply. Ma'am? I can't discuss details in this setting, Hayes said, standing up from her desk. But I want you to think carefully about whether you're willing to take risks for opportunities that don't officially exist. Whether you're prepared to serve your country in ways that will never be acknowledged or recognized. The colonel walked to her window, looking out at the flight line where F-22s were being prepared for the day's training missions. Your brother died because of a mechanical failure that shouldn't have happened. You've dedicated yourself to preventing similar tragedies. But what if I told you there was a way to honor his memory that involved more than just maintaining aircraft? Emma joined Hayes at the window, watching as pilots conducted their pre-flight inspections on aircraft she had serviced. I'm not sure. I understand, ma'am. Some missions require capabilities that don't appear on any organizational chart, Hayes said quietly. Some situations demand responses from people who don't officially exist in any system. People who can disappear into assignments that never happened, serving in roles that have no names. The colonel turned to face Emma directly. I'm offering you a choice, Sergeant Chun. You can continue your excellent work as a maintenance technician, building a distinguished career in a field where you're clearly gifted. Or you can step into something that will challenge every assumption you have about what's possible in military service. Emma felt her heart racing. What kind of something? Hayes returned to her desk and pulled out a business card with no name, no title, just a phone number. If you're interested in learning more, call this number tomorrow at exactly 2100 hours. Use the secure phone in Building 7. Someone will explain options that don't exist in official regulations. Emma took the card, noting that it felt different. From normal paper, heavier, and with a texture that suggested specialized manufacturing. Ma'am, can you tell me anything else about what this involves? Hayes sat down and reopened Emma's file. I can tell you that the Air Force has identified individuals with exceptional abilities who might serve in roles that require unique qualifications. People who understand aircraft systems better than most engineers and can fly with skills that suggest natural talent beyond normal training. She looked up at Emma with an expression that seemed to see straight through her carefully maintained facade. I can also tell you that such opportunities come with risks and sacrifices that most people aren't willing to accept. They require commitment to missions that may never be acknowledged and service that may never be honored. Emma thought about her brother Michael, about the countless hours she had spent perfecting maintenance procedures on aircraft she would never officially be allowed to fly. She thought about the simulator sessions where she had discovered abilities that surprised even her, capabilities that felt as natural as breathing. If I make this call, there's no going back to regular duty, is there? Hayes shook her head. If you make this call and qualify for what they're offering, Emma Chun, the maintenance technician, will effectively cease to exist. You'll become something else entirely, someone whose service exists in the spaces between official records. Emma pocketed the card and stood to leave. Thank you for the opportunity, ma'am. Don't thank me yet, Hayes replied. Thank me if you survive what comes next. As Emma left the colonel's office, she realized that her carefully ordered world at Whitmore Air Force Base was about to change forever. The choice before her represented everything she had wanted but never dared to pursue, the chance to honor her brother's memory, not just through maintenance work, but through the kind of flying that had called to her since childhood. Walking back toward Hangar 12, she passed the memorial wall where fallen airmen were honored. Michael's name wasn't there, he had been based elsewhere, but Emma paused anyway, thinking about promises made to the dead and opportunities offered to the living. That evening, alone in her quarters, Emma Chun stared at the mysterious business card and wondered whether she had the courage to make a call that would transform her from invisible support staff into something that officially didn't exist at all. At exactly 21:00 hours the following evening, Emma Chun stood outside Building 7, a nondescript concrete structure that housed secure communications equipment. Her hand trembled slightly as she dialed the number from Colonel Hayes' card. The phone rang once before a woman's voice answered. With clinical precision, verify your identity using the alpha sequence printed on your card. Emma flipped the card over, discovering faint text that hadn't been visible in normal lighting. Under the building's specialized security illumination, numbers and letters appeared. Tango-7-Niner-Delta-Whiskey. Tango-7-Niner-Delta-Whiskey. Emma repeated, confirmed. Report to Hangar 23 at 03:00 hours tomorrow. Come alone. Bring no personal electronics or identification beyond your military ID. Tell no one about this conversation. The line went dead before Emma could ask questions. She stared at the phone, realizing she had just committed to something that existed outside normal military channels. Hangar 23 was at the far edge of Whitmore's flight line, in a section she had never been authorized to access. The next morning felt surreal. Emma completed her regular maintenance duties with mechanical precision. While her mind raced through possibilities, she signed off on hydraulic system checks for 3 F-22s, updated avionics calibration logs, and attended the daily briefing as if nothing had changed. But every action felt like preparation for leaving a life she would never return to. At 02:45 hours, Emma made her way across the darkened base toward coordinates she had memorized from restricted facility maps. Hangar 23 stood isolated from other buildings, surrounded by security fencing that didn't appear on official base layouts. As she approached, motion sensors activated lighting that revealed armed guards who examined her military ID with equipment she didn't recognize. Technical Sergeant Chun, one guard confirmed, checking her name against a tablet computer. You're expected. The hangar doors opened with hydraulic silence, revealing an interior that defied explanation. Instead of the standard aircraft maintenance bay Emma expected, she found herself in what appeared to be a high-tech briefing facility. Banks of computer monitors displayed real-time intelligence feeds from around the world. Maps showed flight paths over territories that official sources claimed were restricted airspace. Most unsettling were the photographs lining one wall, dozens of aircraft that looked familiar but wrong, like F-22s and F-35s that had been modified with technology she couldn't identify. Welcome to Task Force Echo, Sergeant Chun. Emma turned to find a man in civilian clothes approaching from the shadows. He was perhaps 50 years old, with the bearing of someone accustomed to command, but no visible rank insignia. His presence filled the space with authority that made Emma unconsciously straighten to attention. I'm Director Samuel Morrison, no relation to your Master Sergeant Morrison at the regular hangars. I oversee operations that the Pentagon acknowledges exist, but prefers not to discuss in congressional hearings. Morrison gestured toward a conference table where several other individuals waited. Emma recognized none of them, but their posture and alertness suggested military training despite their civilian clothing. Before we continue, you need to understand what you're volunteering for, Morrison said, taking a seat at the table's head. Task Force Echo handles situations that require responses beyond conventional military capabilities. We operate aircraft that don't appear in official inventories, fly missions that never happened, and conduct operations in airspace that officially doesn't exist. Emma felt her mouth go dry. What kind of operations? A woman seated to Morrison's left spoke up. She appeared to be in her 30s, with short blonde hair and scars on her hands that suggested extensive flight experience. Reconnaissance over territories where conventional aircraft would be shot down immediately. Supply drops to assets operating in hostile regions. Extraction missions for personnel who've been disavowed by their governments. And sometimes, added a man across the table, We eliminate threats that can't be addressed through diplomatic channels. Morrison raised a hand, silencing further discussion. The point is, Sergeant Chun, that we need pilots who can fly aircraft with capabilities beyond anything in public knowledge. People who can adapt to technology that pushes the boundaries of physics and maintain operational security under circumstances that would break most individuals. Emma studied the faces around the table, recognizing the look she had seen in her brother's eyes after his first combat deployment, the expression of someone who had experienced realities that couldn't be shared with civilians. "Why me?" she asked. "I'm a maintenance personnel, not a pilot." The blonde woman smiled grimly. "According to our intelligence, you've logged more simulator hours than most of our active pilots. Your performance scores indicate natural abilities that can't be taught through conventional training. More importantly, your psychological profile suggests someone motivated by loss who won't break under the pressure of classified operations." Morrison opened a file folder containing documents that made Emma's security clearance feel inadequate. "Your brother Michael's death wasn't accidental, Sergeant. The mechanical failure that killed him was the result of sabotage by foreign intelligence operatives who had infiltrated the maintenance crew at his base." Emma felt the world tilt sideways. "That's impossible." The investigation report said what it needed to say to prevent an international incident, Morrison interrupted. "The truth is that hostile nations have been targeting our military technology for decades, using methods that include assassinating pilots and technicians who might expose their activities." The man across the table slid a photograph toward Emma. It showed her brother's aircraft after the crash, but the image revealed details that hadn't appeared in official reports. Burn patterns that suggested explosive devices, metal fatigue in locations that indicated deliberate weakening. "We've been tracking the organization responsible for your brother's death for 3 years, the blonde woman continued. "They operate through civilian contractors and compromised military personnel, targeting individuals who pose threats to their intelligence-gathering operations." Emma stared at the photograph, feeling rage build in her chest like pressure in an overheated engine. "You're saying Michael was murdered because he discovered something?" "We're saying your brother was eliminated because his flying skills and technical knowledge made him capable of detecting modifications to aircraft that were designed to gather intelligence," Morrison replied. "He died protecting secrets he didn't even know he possessed." The revelation hit Emma like a physical blow. Everything she had believed about her brother's death, every assumption that had shaped her military career, had been built on lies designed to protect operations she couldn't have imagined. "What does this have to do with me?" she asked, though part of her already knew the answer. Morrison leaned forward, his expression deadly serious. "Because you have the same combination of technical expertise and flying ability that made your brother a target. Because the organization that killed him is still operating, still compromising our aircraft and eliminating our people. And because we need someone with your specific skills to stop them." The blonde woman stood and walked to one of the wall monitors, which displayed a map of the Pacific region, marked with incident locations. "In the past 18 months, we've lost 4 aircraft to mechanical failures that follow the same pattern as your brother's crash. Pilots who were too skilled, technicians who knew too much, operations that were getting too close to exposing hostile intelligence networks. We know their next target," the man across the table added. "Captain Sarah Mitchell, an F-35 pilot based in Japan, who's been conducting reconnaissance missions over disputed territories. She's scheduled to fly a classified mission next week that will expose enemy positions our intelligence services have been trying to identify for years." Morrison activated a holographic display that projected 3-dimensional images above the conference table. "The problem is that conventional security measures aren't sufficient to protect Captain Mitchell. The hostiles have demonstrated the ability to compromise our bases, our personnel, and our equipment using methods that our standard protocols can't detect. Emma studied the holographic data, recognizing tactical patterns that reminded her of problems she had solved during maintenance operations. You need someone who can identify their sabotage methods and counter them. We need someone who can do more than that, Morrison replied. We need a pilot who can fly missions that officially don't exist, using aircraft with capabilities that exceed anything in acknowledged military inventories. Someone who can operate independently of normal command structures and maintain security protocols that would be impossible for personnel with official identities. The blonde woman returned to her seat, fixing Emma with a stare that seemed to catalog her every reaction. Basically, we need a ghost. Someone who can serve without existing, fly without being recorded, and eliminate threats without leaving evidence that could compromise ongoing operations. Emma felt the magnitude of what they were offering settle over her like the weight of full flight gear. And if I refuse, then you return to your maintenance duties and forget this conversation ever happened, Morrison said. Your service record will remain exemplary, your career will progress normally, and the organization that killed your brother will continue eliminating our people one by one. The silence in the hangar stretched until Emma could hear the distant sound of conventional aircraft conducting night training exercises. Normal operations by normal personnel following normal procedures that had failed to protect her brother and were failing to protect others. What would I become? She asked quietly. Morrison opened another file, revealing documents that made Emma's eyes widen. Identity papers for someone named Alex Sterling, pilot certification for aircraft that didn't appear in any registry she recognized, and authorization codes for operations that existed in the spaces between official military programs. You would become someone who never officially existed, he explained. Emma Chun would remain at Whitmore Air Force Base, performing her maintenance duties while occasionally taking approved leave for reasons that wouldn't be questioned. Meanwhile, Alex Sterling would operate out of facilities that don't appear on any map, flying missions that protect American interests through methods that Congress doesn't want to know about. The blonde woman leaned forward. It's not an easy life. You'll spend months at a time in complete isolation, operating undercover identities in countries where capture would mean torture and death. You'll fly aircraft that push the boundaries of what's physically possible, handling technology that could kill you if you make mistakes. And you'll never be able to tell anyone about the work you do or the people you save. But, the man across the table added, you'll also have capabilities that no other pilot in the world possesses. Aircraft that can become invisible to radar, weapon systems that can eliminate targets with surgical precision and intelligence, resources that give you access to information that shapes global politics. Emma thought about her brother Michael, about the 18 months she had spent perfecting maintenance procedures while dreaming of flight opportunities that seemed impossible. She thought about Captain Sarah Mitchell, a pilot she had never met, who was scheduled to fly into a trap designed by the same people who had murdered her brother. If I agree to this, what happens next? Morrison smiled for the first time since she had arrived. Next, you disappear for 6 months of training that will transform you into something that the people who killed your brother never saw coming. Training that will prepare you to operate in situations where conventional pilots would be shot down before they could react. The blonde woman activated another holographic display, showing aircraft that defied Emma's understanding of aerodynamics. Fighters that moved like living things, bombers that could appear and disappear like ghosts, transport aircraft that could operate in conditions that would destroy conventional machines. These are the tools you'll learn to use, she explained. Technology that exists 20 years ahead of anything in public knowledge, developed by programs that officially consume budget allocations for projects that sound boring in congressional hearings. Emma stared at the holographic aircraft, recognizing design principles that made her technical training feel elementary. How is this possible? Because, Morrison replied, the American military-industrial complex is far more advanced than our enemies realize. We allow them to see F-22s and F-35s while keeping the real bleeding-edge technology hidden in programs like Task Force Echo. The man across the table stood and walked to a wall safe that Emma hadn't noticed before. From it, he withdrew equipment that looked like standard flight gear but felt different when he placed it on the table lighter, more flexible with integrated technology that seemed to respond to proximity. This is what you'll wear when you become Alex Sterling, he explained. Flight suits with life support systems that can operate in environments that would kill normal pilots. Helmets with targeting systems that interface directly with aircraft. Weapons, gloves that allow you to control multiple aircraft systems simultaneously through thought-directed commands. Emma reached out to touch the equipment, feeling material that seemed to warm under her fingers. When would I start? Morrison checked his watch. Transport leaves in 4 hours. You'll have 30 minutes to pack essential personal items that fit in a single duffel bag. Everything else about Emma Chun stays here. The decision hung in the air between them. Emma realized that accepting would mean abandoning the life she had built at Whitmore, leaving behind colleagues who respected her work and routines that had given her comfort. But it would also mean gaining the power to prevent other families from losing brothers to enemies who hid behind mechanical failures and official accidents. What about Colonel Hayes? Emma asked. She wondered what happened to me. The blonde woman smiled. Colonel Hayes is how we identified you in the first place. She's been watching for personnel with your specific combination of abilities for 3 years. Your sudden transfer to advanced training programs won't surprise her. Morrison closed the files and stood up. Last chance to walk away, Sergeant Chun. Once you accept this assignment, there's no returning to the person you were. Emma Chun will become a cover identity, a maintenance technician who occasionally disappears for classified training while Alex Sterling learns to fly missions that shape world history. Emma thought about her brother's final transmission, about the mechanical failure that hadn't been mechanical, about Captain Sarah Mitchell flying into danger while conventional security measures failed to protect her. She thought about the simulator sessions where she had discovered flying abilities that surprised even her, capabilities that had felt as natural as breathing. I accept, she said quietly. Morrison nodded approvingly. Welcome to Task Force Echo, Alex Sterling. Your new life begins now. As Emma left Hangar 23 with instructions for her departure, she realized that she had just volunteered to become something that officially didn't exist, a ghost pilot operating in the spaces between acknowledged reality and classified truth. The comfortable world of maintenance schedules and technical regulations was about to be replaced by something far more dangerous and infinitely more important. Behind her, the lights in Hangar 23 dimmed as equipment was secured and personnel prepared for her departure. Emma Chun was about to disappear from official records, while Alex Sterling emerged from the shadows to fight a war that most people would never know existed. 6 months after Emma Chun's disappearance into the classified world of Task Force Echo, life at Whitmore Air Force Base had settled into new rhythms that worked around her absence. Master Sergeant Jake Morrison found himself checking the maintenance schedules twice as often, unconsciously looking for the perfectionist attention to detail that Emma had brought to every assignment. The newer technicians were competent, but none possessed her intuitive understanding of aircraft systems or her ability to diagnose problems that computer diagnostics missed. Still feels wrong, Morrison muttered to himself as he reviewed hydraulic pressure readings on Falcon 7, the same F-22 that Emma had monitored with such precision. The numbers were within acceptable parameters, but they lacked the meticulous notation and cross-referenced analysis that had made Emma's reports legendary among the engineering staff at the Pentagon. Staff Sergeant Lisa Park, who had taken over Emma's administrative responsibilities, struggled with technical documentation that Emma had completed effortlessly. How did she memorize all these component specifications? Lisa asked Technical Sergeant David Walsh, one of Emma's former colleagues. I'm looking at maintenance manuals that are 3 inches thick, and she never needed to reference them. Walsh paused in his calibration work on an avionics system, remembering how Emma had once identified a microscopic wiring flaw by listening to system startup sounds. Chun didn't just read those manuals, he replied. She understood them like they were written in her native language, made the rest of us look like we were still learning the alphabet. The official story was that Technical Sergeant Chun had been selected for advanced training programs that would eventually lead to promotion and assignment to specialized maintenance units. Colonel Hayes had announced the transfer during a routine squadron meeting, mentioning Emma's exceptional performance and the Air Force's investment in her continued education. To the personnel at Whitmore, it seemed like a natural progression for someone with Emma's abilities, but Airman First Class Tyler Brooks, who had spent countless hours with Emma in the flight simulators, noticed inconsistencies in the official narrative. The training program Emma had supposedly entered didn't appear in any military education catalog he could access. The contact information provided for her new assignment led to automated responses that revealed no actual details about her location or activities. Something's not right about Chun's transfer, Brooks confided to Airman Second Class Marcus Rivera during a maintenance break. I tried to send her a message through official channels, and it came back marked Recipient Classification Restricted. What kind of training program makes someone completely inaccessible to their former colleagues? Rivera, who had worked alongside Emma on engine overhauls, shared Brooks' suspicions, but understood the futility of investigating classified military operations. Maybe she's involved in something that requires complete communication security, he suggested. You know how Chun was about perfection. Maybe she qualified for some kind of elite program that operates under different rules. The truth was more complex than any of them suspected. Emma Chun's personnel file at Whitmore remained active, showing her as temporarily assigned to advanced training with expected return dates that were periodically updated by administrative systems that operated beyond the base's normal oversight. Pay continued to be deposited in her accounts, leave time accumulated according to standard regulations, and her security clearances remained valid for her eventual return to regular duties. Meanwhile, in a facility that didn't appear on any official map, Alex Sterling was undergoing a transformation that pushed the boundaries of human capability. The training compound existed in a remote section of Nevada desert, camouflaged by technology that made it invisible to satellite surveillance and accessible only through transportation methods that operated outside normal military logistics. 6 months of Alex Sterling's creation had been unlike anything Emma Chun could have imagined. Physical conditioning that enhanced reaction times beyond normal human limits. Psychological preparation that enabled operation under stress levels that would incapacitate conventional personnel. Technical training on aircraft systems that incorporated technology decades ahead of anything in public knowledge. Flight instruction had been conducted by pilots whose names appeared in no official records, using aircraft that defied Emma's understanding of aerodynamics and physics. She learned to control fighters that could become invisible to radar, bombers that could operate in electromagnetic environments that would destroy conventional electronics, and reconnaissance aircraft that could gather intelligence from altitudes and distances that made detection impossible. But the most significant aspect of her training had been the development of capabilities that went beyond piloting skills. Alex Sterling was being prepared to operate as a complete intelligence asset, someone who could infiltrate hostile organizations, gather critical information, and eliminate threats using methods that left no evidence of American involvement. Your brother's death was just the beginning, explained Commander Sarah Chun, no relation. Despite the shared surname, who served as Alex's primary instructor in covert operations, the organization that killed him has been expanding their activities, targeting not just American personnel but allied pilots and technicians who pose threats to their intelligence gathering. Commander Chun was herself a graduate of programs that officially didn't exist, a pilot whose service record showed conventional assignments, while her actual experience included missions that had prevented international conflicts and eliminated threats that could have destabilized entire regions. "We've identified 17 additional targets," she continued, displaying holographic intelligence data that showed locations across 3 continents. Military personnel whose technical knowledge or flying abilities make them dangerous to hostile intelligence networks. People who are scheduled to die in accidents over the next 18 months unless we intervene. Alex studied the target profiles, recognizing the same combination of technical expertise and pilot skills that had characterized her brother Michael's capabilities. Engineers who understood classified aircraft modifications, test pilots who could detect unauthorized changes to flight systems, maintenance technicians whose attention to detail might expose sabotage operations. Captain Sarah Mitchell in Japan was just the first intervention, Commander Chun explained. Her mechanical failure was prevented by intelligence we gathered through sources that took 3 years to develop. But saving her exposed our operations to hostile surveillance, which means we need to accelerate our timeline for eliminating the threat permanently. The training facility contained technology that seemed to operate according to principles that Emma's engineering background couldn't fully comprehend. Aircraft simulators that provided sensory experiences indistinguishable from actual flight. Weapon systems that responded to thought-directed commands. Communications equipment that could maintain secure contact with assets anywhere in the world, without using conventional transmission methods. "How is this possible?" Alex asked during a break between training sessions. "This technology is decades beyond anything I studied in technical school." Commander Chun smiled grimly. "Because the American military-industrial complex has been developing classified capabilities for longer than most people realize. The aircraft you see in public demonstrations are deliberately obsolete compared to what we actually possess. We let potential enemies focus on F-22s and F-35s while keeping the real bleeding edge technology hidden in programs like Task Force Echo." The psychological conditioning had been the most challenging aspect of Alex's transformation, learning to compartmentalize emotions that could compromise mission effectiveness, developing the ability to operate undercover identities for extended periods without losing connection to core personality traits, building resistance to interrogation techniques that hostile intelligence services might employ if she were captured. Alex Sterling isn't just a name change, Commander Chun had explained during the early weeks of training. She's a complete identity with history, relationships, and personality traits that must become as natural to you as breathing. When you're operating undercover, any inconsistency could expose not just your mission, but the entire network of assets we've spent years developing. The most unsettling aspect of the transformation had been learning to exist in 2 realities simultaneously. Emma Chun continued to exist in military records, occasionally generating communications that maintained the illusion of her participation in advanced training programs. Meanwhile, Alex Sterling developed relationships and operational capabilities that existed in classified networks operating beyond normal oversight. During month 4 of training, Alex had received her first assignment, a reconnaissance mission, over territories where conventional aircraft would be detected and destroyed immediately. Flying an aircraft that incorporated stealth technology beyond anything in public knowledge, she had gathered intelligence on hostile military installations that were preparing to launch attacks against American allies. The mission had been successful, but it had also demonstrated the isolation that characterized operations in Task Force Echo. Alex had spent 2 weeks operating alone in hostile territory, maintaining communication only through encrypted channels that revealed nothing about her location or activities. When she returned to the training facility, she found that the successful completion of her first mission had fundamentally changed her relationship with her own identity. "Emma Chun feels like someone I used to know," Alex confided to Commander Chun during a post-mission debriefing. "When I think about my life at Whitmore, it seems like memories from someone else's experience." Commander Chun nodded understandingly. "That's normal for operatives at your level. The psychological conditioning necessary for deep cover operations creates natural separation between your cover identity and your operational persona. The important thing is maintaining connection to core motivations that keep you grounded in mission objectives." For Alex, those core motivations remained centered on preventing other families from experiencing the loss that had shaped her decision to join Task Force Echo. Every intelligence report about hostile activities, every briefing on threats to American personnel, reinforced her commitment to operations that existed beyond official acknowledgement. Back at Whitmore Air Force Base, the absence of Emma Chun's technical expertise had created subtle but significant impacts on operational efficiency. Aircraft maintenance schedules that had run with clockwork precision now required additional oversight and verification. Diagnostic procedures that Emma had streamlined through intuitive understanding of system interactions now took longer and required more personnel. "We need to request additional technical support," Morrison reported to Colonel Hayes during a monthly maintenance review. "Our efficiency ratings have dropped 12% since Chun's fur, and we're seeing minor issues that her procedures used to catch before they became problems." Colonel Hayes reviewed the maintenance statistics while thinking about reports she received through channels that her personnel couldn't access. Alex Sterling's operations were generating intelligence that prevented international incidents and saved lives. But Emma Chun's absence was creating gaps in conventional military effectiveness that couldn't be filled through normal personnel assignments. "Any word on when Chun might return from her training program?" Morrison asked. Hayes considered her answer carefully. The truth was that Emma Chun might never return to conventional duty, depending on the success of operations that would determine the future of Task Force Echo's activities. But Morrison and his team needed to believe in eventual restoration of their technical capabilities. "Her training program has been extended due to exceptional performance," Hayes replied. "The Air Force is investing considerable resources in her advanced education, which suggests they have significant plans for her eventual assignment." As month 6 of Alex Sterling's operational existence concluded, intelligence reports indicated that hostile activities were accelerating. The organization responsible for targeting American military personnel had expanded their operations and developed new methods for compromising aircraft systems. Captain Sarah Mitchell's survival had disrupted their timeline, but hadn't eliminated the threat to other potential targets. "We've received authorization for direct action operations," Commander Chun informed Alex during a final briefing before her deployment to active missions. "Intelligence gathering is no longer sufficient. We need to eliminate the hostile network permanently, which means identifying their leadership and neutralizing their operational capabilities." Alex studied mission parameters that would take her into territories where capture would mean torture and death, operating undercover identities in countries where American personnel were considered enemy combatants. The assignments would require months of isolation, communicating only through encrypted channels while gathering intelligence that could prevent international conflicts. "What about Emma Chun?" Alex asked. "How long can her official absence be maintained?" Commander Chun activated a holographic display, showing personnel movements and administrative systems that operated across multiple military installations. Emma Chun's cover identity can be sustained indefinitely through automated systems that generate appropriate communications and maintain her service record. As far as Whitmore Air Force Base is concerned, she's completing advanced training that justifies her extended absence. The briefing concluded with equipment assignment and final mission authorization. Alex Sterling was about to begin operations that would test every aspect of her training while determining whether Task Force Echo could eliminate threats that conventional military forces couldn't. Acknowledged. As she prepared for deployment, Alex thought about the colleague she had left behind at Whitmore Morrison's gruff mentorship, Brooks' enthusiasm for understanding flight systems, the routine satisfaction of maintaining aircraft to perfect standards. That life seemed to belong to someone else now, someone whose technical expertise had been transformed into capabilities that operated in the shadows of official military service. Emma Chun's absence had created ripples that affected everyone who had worked with her, but Alex Sterling's emergence represented responses to threats that those colleagues would never know existed. The transformation was complete, and the real work was about to begin. 18 months after Emma Chun's departure from Whitmore Air Force Base, Technical Sergeant Maria Santos was conducting routine inventory checks in Hangar 12 when she noticed something that made her question her sanity. According to the morning duty roster, Technical Sergeant Chun was scheduled for equipment inspection duties, but Maria distinctly remembered attending Chun's farewell gathering before her transfer to advanced training programs. "Morrison, did you authorize Chun's return to active duty?" Maria called across the hangar floor, her voice carrying confusion that made several other technicians look up from their work. "Master." Sergeant Jake Morrison stopped his diagnostic procedures and walked over to examine the duty roster. Emma Chun's name appeared in the standard computer-generated format, listed for hydraulic system maintenance on 3 F-22 Raptors. But Morrison had received no notification of her return from extended training, no administrative updates about her reassignment to regular duties. "Computer glitch," Morrison muttered, though the explanation felt inadequate. "Chun's been gone for a year and a half. Her training program must have been extended again." But as Morrison spoke, a figure in standard maintenance coveralls emerged from the parts storage area, carrying calibration equipment that Emma Chun had always preferred for precision work. The woman moved with familiar efficiency, checking tool settings with the methodical precision that had made Emma legendary among the maintenance crews. "Holy hell," whispered Airman First Class Tyler Brooks, dropping his wrench with a metallic clatter that echoed through the suddenly silent hangar. "That's Chun." The woman looked up at the sound, revealing facial features that were unmistakably Emma Chun's, but somehow different in ways that were difficult to define. She appeared leaner, more alert, with an unconscious awareness of her surroundings that suggested training beyond standard military protocols. Her movements carried confidence that bordered on dangerous competence. "Morning, Morrison," Emma said, her voice carrying the same professional tone that her colleagues remembered, but with undertones that suggested experiences that couldn't be shared through normal conversation. "Hydraulic pressure readings on. Falcon 7 had been fluctuating according to the maintenance logs. Thought I'd run a complete system diagnostic." Morrison stared at her in disbelief. Emma Chun looked exactly as he remembered, but her presence felt fundamentally different, like encountering a photograph that had somehow stepped into three-dimensional reality, while retaining its essential character but losing something indefinable in the translation. "Chun, what the hell are you doing here?" Morrison asked, his voice tight with confusion. "Your training assignment was supposed to last another 6 months minimum." Emma began connecting diagnostic equipment to Falcon 7's hydraulic systems with muscle memory that demonstrated 18 months hadn't diminished her technical expertise. Training program concluded ahead of schedule. Exceptional performance. Ratings led to accelerated completion and reassignment to operational duties. The explanation was technically plausible, but Morrison noticed that Emma's response felt rehearsed, like someone delivering information that had been carefully prepared for exactly this type of questioning. Moreover, her technical procedures incorporated modifications to standard protocols that he didn't recognize from any official manual. "Where exactly were you training?" asked Technical Sergeant David Walsh, who had worked closely with Emma before her departure. "We tried to contact you through official channels several times, but all communications came back marked as classification restricted." Emma paused in her diagnostic work, considering her response with precision that suggested every word was being evaluated for potential security implications. Advanced Technical Training Facility in Colorado. Classification restrictions were necessary due to experimental aircraft systems that required specialized security protocols. Staff Sergeant Lisa Park approached with administrative paperwork that should have accompanied any personnel returning from extended assignments. "Chun, I need to process your return to duty documentation. Where are your transfer orders and training completion certificates?" Emma reached into her coverall pocket and produced documents that appeared authentic, but felt wrong in ways that Park couldn't immediately identify. The paper stock seemed standard, the formatting matched official military specifications, and the authorization signatures looked legitimate. But the issuing authority was listed as a training facility that Park couldn't locate in any military education database. "Mountain Technical Training Center," Park read aloud from the documents. "I've never heard of this installation. What kind of aircraft systems were you working on?" Emma continued her diagnostic procedures while answering questions with responses that satisfied immediate curiosity without providing substantive information. Classified experimental avionics, next-generation targeting systems, advanced flight control modifications that require specialized maintenance protocols. Airman Brooks, who had spent countless hours with Emma in flight simulators before her departure, noticed something that made his stomach tighten with unease. Emma's answers were too perfect, too precisely calibrated to avoid revealing specific details, while maintaining plausible explanations for her extended absence. "Chun, remember that simulator session where you nailed the carrier landing on your third attempt?" Brooks asked, testing her memory with details that only the real Emma would know. "You said the approach felt like something you'd done before." Emma looked up from her diagnostic equipment with eyes that held knowledge that hadn't been there 18 months ago. "I remember spending a lot of time in simulators, Brooks. Help me understand how maintenance procedures translate into actual flight operations." The response was accurate but somehow hollow, like someone accessing memories that belonged to a different person. Brooks felt certain he was talking to Emma Chun, but equally certain that something fundamental about her had changed during her mysterious training assignment. Colonel Patricia Hayes arrived at Hangar 12 at the purposeful stride of someone responding to unexpected developments. She had been monitoring personnel movements through automated systems that tracked all base assignments, and Emma Chun's sudden appearance in duty rosters had triggered security protocols that required immediate investigation. "Technical Sergeant Chun," Hayes said, her voice carrying authority that made everyone in the hangar unconsciously straighten to attention. "Report to my office immediately for a reassignment briefing." Emma secured her diagnostic equipment with the same methodical precision that her colleagues remembered, but Hayes noticed modifications to her standard procedures that suggested training beyond anything available through conventional military programs. Her movements carried efficiency that bordered on supernatural competence. "Ma'am, hydraulic system analysis indicates pressure variations that require component replacement," Emma reported, handing Hayes a diagnostic report that demonstrated technical expertise at levels that exceeded her pre-departure capabilities. "Recommend maintenance priority alpha for operational safety." Hayes examined the report, recognizing analytical depth that surpassed anything she had seen from technicians with decades of experience. Emma's diagnostic procedures had identified potential failure points that computer systems had missed, using methods that weren't documented in any official maintenance manual. 20 minutes later, in the privacy of her office, Hayes confronted Emma with questions that had no easy answers. "Sergeant Chen, Your return to duty wasn't scheduled for another 6 months. What changed about your training timeline? Emma sat across from Hayes' desk with posture that suggested readiness for rapid movement, a subtle alertness that indicated defensive capabilities beyond standard military training. Training objectives were completed ahead of schedule due to exceptional performance in all evaluation categories. What specific training did you complete? Hayes pressed, studying Emma's face for inconsistencies that might reveal the truth about her 18-month absence. Advanced technical systems, classified aircraft modifications, specialized maintenance protocols for experimental equipment. Emma replied, her answers maintaining the same precise vagueness that had characterized her responses in the hangar. Hayes leaned back in her chair. Recognizing the type of carefully prepared responses that characterized personnel who had completed classified training programs that operated beyond normal oversight. Sergeant, are you the same Emma Chun who left this base 18 months ago? The question hung in the air between them. Emma considered her response with the deliberation of someone who understood that her answer would shape how others perceived her return to conventional military service. I'm Technical Sergeant Emma Chen, reporting for duty as assigned, she replied finally. My service record reflects continuous military service with temporary assignments to advanced training programs that enhance my technical capabilities. Hayes nodded slowly, understanding that she was receiving answers that satisfied official requirements without revealing information that existed beyond her security clearance. Your diagnostic report on Falcon 7 demonstrates analysis techniques that exceed standard protocols. Where did you learn these methods? Emma's response revealed the first genuine emotion she had displayed since her return. From understanding that mechanical failures cost lives, and that preventing those failures requires capabilities beyond conventional maintenance procedures. The answer reminded Hayes of the Emma Chun who had left 18 months ago, someone motivated by her brother's death and committed to ensuring that technical expertise protected pilot safety. But this version of Emma carried knowledge and capabilities that suggested experiences that couldn't be shared through normal conversation. You'll be returning to your previous duties with additional responsibilities for advanced systems maintenance. Hayes decided. Your enhanced technical capabilities will be valuable for upcoming aircraft modifications that require specialized expertise. As Emma left the colonel's office, Hayes made secure communications to contacts who operated beyond normal military channels. Emma Chen's return represented either successful completion of classified training programs or security compromise that required immediate investigation. Either possibility had implications that extended far beyond Whitmore Air Force Base. Back in Hangar 12, Emma's colleagues struggled to reconcile the familiar technician they remembered with the enhanced capabilities she now demonstrated. Her diagnostic procedures identified problems that their equipment couldn't detect. Her maintenance techniques incorporated modifications that improved aircraft performance beyond manufacturer specifications. Her knowledge of advanced systems suggested training on technology that wasn't available through conventional military programs. She's different, Brooks confided to Santos during their lunch break. Same person, same technical skills, but there's something about her that feels dangerous, like she's constantly evaluating everything around her for potential threats. Santos had noticed the same changes. Emma's awareness of her surroundings seemed hyper-tuned, as if she were monitoring multiple threat vectors simultaneously. Her responses to routine questions carried precision that suggested careful consideration of security implications. Maybe advanced training programs are more intense than we realized, Santos suggested, though her explanation felt inadequate. Special operations personnel develop different awareness patterns due to specialized preparation. The truth was that Alex Sterling had returned to Emma Chun's life, carrying capabilities and knowledge that existed in the spaces between official military service and classified operations. The 18 months of transformation had created someone who could function in conventional military environments, while maintaining readiness for assignments that officially didn't exist. During her first week back at Whitmore, Emma demonstrated technical abilities that revolutionized maintenance procedures. For the entire squadron, aircraft that had required days of diagnostic work now completed inspections in hours. System problems that had puzzled experienced technicians were resolved through intuitive understanding of component interactions that seemed almost supernatural. But Emma's enhanced capabilities came with isolation that her colleagues couldn't understand. She completed assignments with mechanical precision while maintaining emotional distance that prevented genuine connection with the people who had once considered her a close friend and respected colleague. "Chun, want to grab dinner at the commissary?" Brooks asked after a particularly successful maintenance session where Emma had identified 3 potential failure points that could have caused catastrophic aircraft malfunctions. "Thanks, but I have additional duties that require completion," Emma replied, her response technically accurate but emotionally empty. Brooks watched her walk away, recognizing that Emma Chun had returned to Whitmore Air Force Base. But the person he had known, someone who had shared excitement about understanding flight systems and had spent countless hours exploring aircraft capabilities through simulator sessions, seemed to have been replaced by someone who possessed all of Emma's technical knowledge but none of her personal warmth. The impossible return was complete. Emma Chun existed in official records and performed duties that matched her previous assignment. But the 18 months of transformation had created someone who carried classified capabilities and operational knowledge that couldn't be shared with the colleagues who thought they knew her. As her first week concluded, Emma received encrypted communications through channels that her colleagues couldn't access, confirming that her return to conventional duty was temporary cover for operations that would soon require Alex Sterling's specialized capabilities. The hostile organization that had killed her brother was accelerating their activities, and intelligence indicated that direct action would be necessary to eliminate threats that conventional military forces couldn't. Acknowledged. Emma Chun's return had been successful, but it represented preparation for missions that would test whether someone could exist simultaneously in official military service and classified operations that shaped global security through methods that officially didn't exist. 3 weeks after Emma Chun's return to Whitmore Air Force Base, encrypted intelligence reports began arriving through channels that bypassed normal military communications. The data streams were transmitted during maintenance windows when conventional radar systems underwent routine calibration, making detection by hostile surveillance networks virtually impossible. Emma received these communications through modified diagnostic equipment that appeared to function as standard aircraft testing tools, but contained embedded receivers for classified information. The intelligence painted a picture that transformed everything Emma's colleagues understood about recent military operations. The routine training exercises they had been conducting over the past 18 months had actually been cover operations designed to identify and eliminate hostile infiltration networks that had penetrated American military installations across 3 continents. Captain Sarah Mitchell, the F-35 pilot in Japan, whose mechanical failure had been prevented by Task Force Echo's intervention, had become the focal point of an investigation that revealed the scope of enemy operations. Her scheduled mission had been designed to expose positions that hostile intelligence services had spent years establishing, using American military personnel as unwitting sources of classified information. "The sabotage network is more extensive than we initially assessed," reported Director Morrison through Emma's encrypted communication system. The transmission came disguised as routine diagnostic data that would appear normal to anyone monitoring base communications. "We've identified 17 installation commanders who have been compromised through various methods: financial coercion, blackmail, family threats, and ideological manipulation." Emma processed this information while conducting standard maintenance procedures on F-22 avionics systems. her enhanced training allowing her to absorb complex intelligence briefings, while maintaining the appearance of routine technical work. The revelation that base commanders had been compromised explained how hostile agents had gained access to aircraft, modifications, and personnel records that should have been beyond their reach. The most disturbing aspect of the intelligence was the systematic nature of the enemy's approach. Rather than conducting isolated attacks against specific targets, they had developed a comprehensive strategy for degrading American military effectiveness through accumulated technical failures, personnel eliminations, and information theft that appeared unrelated when examined individually. Your brother Michael's death was part of a broader operation called Falling Eagles. Director Morrison's transmission continued. The objective was to eliminate American pilots and technicians whose capabilities exceeded normal training parameters. Personnel whose natural abilities or technical expertise posed threats to long-term infiltration operations. Emma felt a familiar rage building in her chest as she learned that Michael's murder had been part of a coordinated campaign targeting the most capable American military personnel. The mechanical failure that had killed him was one of 43 similar incidents designed to appear like routine accidents, while systematically removing individuals who might detect or counter hostile intelligence activities. The encrypted briefing included detailed analysis of enemy operations that revealed sophisticated understanding of American military culture and procedures. Hostile agents had identified personality types most susceptible to various forms of manipulation, technical systems most vulnerable to undetectable sabotage, and administrative processes that could be exploited to place compromised personnel in critical positions. Task Force Echo was created specifically to counter these operations, Director Morrison explained through the disguised transmission. Our personnel are selected for psychological profiles that resist conventional manipulation, techniques and technical abilities that exceed enemy capabilities for detection or elimination. Emma understood that her transformation from maintenance technician to covert operative had been designed to create someone who could infiltrate the hostile network using their own methods against them. Alex Sterling possessed capabilities that exceeded anything the enemy had encountered, operating through channels that existed beyond their surveillance abilities. The intelligence briefing concluded with operational parameters for her next assignment. Emma would deploy to Ramstein Air Base in Germany, officially as part of a technical exchange program designed to standardize maintenance procedures across NATO installations. Unofficially, she would be investigating reports of aircraft modifications that suggested hostile agents had compromised European military technology. Your cover identity as Emma Chun provides perfect access to sensitive installations, Director Morrison noted. European military commanders expect American technical personnel to demonstrate superior expertise. They won't question your enhanced capabilities or ask detailed questions about training programs that produce such advanced skills. As Emma concluded her encrypted briefing, she realized that her return to conventional military service had been preparation for operations that would test every aspect of her dual identity. She would need to function as a normal maintenance technician while conducting covert intelligence gathering that could prevent international incidents. The complexity of maintaining her cover became apparent during a routine squadron meeting, where Colonel Hayes announced personnel assignments for the upcoming NATO Technical Exchange Program. Emma's selection for the prestigious assignment surprised her colleagues, who understood that such opportunities typically went to senior personnel with extensive operational experience. Chun's exceptional performance during advanced training programs makes her an ideal candidate for international technical cooperation, Hayes explained to the assembled maintenance staff. Her enhanced expertise in experimental aircraft systems will be valuable for standardizing procedures across Allied installations. Master Sergeant Morrison raised concerns about losing Emma's technical capabilities during their busiest operational period. "Ma'am," Chun's diagnostic abilities have improved our maintenance efficiency by 30% since her return. Sending her to Europe for 6 months will significantly impact our operational readiness. Hayes nodded understandingly while knowing that Emma's deployment served purposes that extended far beyond technical exchange programs. The Air Force has invested considerable resources in Sergeant Chin's advanced training. International assignments are necessary to maximize the return on that investment while strengthening alliance cooperation. Emma listened to the discussion about her assignment while processing intelligence that revealed the true scope of her mission. Ramstein Air Base had been experiencing aircraft malfunctions that followed patterns similar to incidents at installations where hostile infiltration had been confirmed. Her technical expertise would provide cover for investigating sabotage activities that conventional security measures couldn't detect. After the meeting, Emma's colleagues expressed a mixture of admiration and concern about her assignment to prestigious international duty. Technical Sergeant Walsh, who had worked closely with her before her mysterious training program, seemed particularly troubled by the rapid advancement in her career trajectory. "Chun, 18 months ago you were a solid technician with good instincts," Walsh said during a private conversation in the equipment storage area. "Now you're demonstrating capabilities that exceed anything I've seen from personnel with decades of experience. What exactly did they teach you during that training program?" Emma considered her response carefully, understanding that Walsh's suspicions represented the type of scrutiny that could compromise her cover identity. "Advanced diagnostic techniques, experimental system analysis, procedures for maintaining classified aircraft modifications," she replied, providing technical details that satisfied immediate curiosity without revealing operational capabilities. Walsh studied her face, searching for inconsistencies that might explain his growing unease about her transformation. "You're different, Chun. Same technical skills, but there's something about your situational awareness that reminds me of special operations personnel I've worked with. Like you're constantly evaluating everyone around you for potential threats." The observation was more accurate than Walsh realized. Emma's enhanced training had included psychological conditioning that enabled threat assessment and response capabilities that operated continuously, even in supposedly secure environments. She had learned to function normally while maintaining readiness for rapid transition to combat operations. Specialized training programs develop different awareness patterns, Emma replied, echoing explanations she had used with other colleagues who noticed changes in her behavior. When you're working with experimental systems that could malfunction catastrophically, you learn to monitor everything around you for potential problems. The explanation was technically plausible, but didn't address Walsh's growing suspicion that Emma Chun possessed capabilities that exceeded anything available through conventional military training. His concerns were shared by other personnel who had worked with her before her mysterious absence and noticed fundamental changes in her competence and awareness levels. Airman Brooks, who had shared Emma's passion for understanding flight systems through simulator training, requested private conversation that revealed deeper insights into her transformation. They met in the flight simulator facility where Brooks had first discovered Emma's natural piloting abilities. "Chun, I need to ask you something directly," Brooks said, activating privacy protocols that prevented their conversation from being monitored through normal base security systems. "The woman who left here 18 months ago was a brilliant technician with natural flying instincts. The person who came back has capabilities that seem almost supernatural. What really happened during your training assignment?" Emma realized that Brooks' question represented the type of direct confrontation that her cover story might not survive. His intimate knowledge of her previous abilities and personality made him capable of detecting inconsistencies that would be invisible to personnel who had known her less well. "Brooks, some training programs are classified beyond normal security protocols," she replied carefully. The capabilities I developed were necessary for assignments that require performance levels beyond conventional military standards. Brooks activated one of the flight simulators, displaying aerial combat scenarios that tested the limits of pilot skill and aircraft performance. "Show me," he said simply. "If your training was as advanced as your capabilities suggest, demonstrate what you learned." Emma understood that Brooks was testing her with challenges that the pre-deployment Emma Chun couldn't have handled successfully. But Alex Sterling possessed piloting abilities that had been developed through training programs that operated beyond normal military oversight, using aircraft with capabilities that exceeded anything in public knowledge. She entered the simulator cockpit and began flying scenarios that pushed the boundaries of what conventional training could achieve. Complex aerial maneuvers executed with precision that suggested integration between pilot and aircraft that bordered on telepathic communication. Combat engagements resolved through tactical decisions that demonstrated strategic thinking capabilities that required years of specialized training to develop. Brooks monitored her performance through diagnostic systems that recorded reaction times, decision-making patterns, and technical execution that exceeded anything he had seen from pilots with decades of operational experience. Emma's flying demonstrated understanding of advanced aircraft systems and combat tactics that weren't available through any training program accessible to maintenance personnel. "Jesus Christ, Chun," Brooks whispered as Emma completed a simulation sequence that challenged the limits of aircraft performance specifications. "Where the hell did you learn to fly like that?" Emma powered down the simulator while considering how much truth she could reveal without compromising operational security. Specialized training programs that prepare personnel for assignments involving experimental aircraft and classified mission parameters. The explanation was accurate but incomplete. Emma's piloting abilities had been developed through programs that incorporated technology and training methods that exceeded anything available through conventional military education. But revealing details about Task Force Echo would compromise operations that extended far beyond her individual assignment. Brooks studied diagnostic readouts that showed performance levels that challenged his understanding of human capabilities. "Chun, these results indicate flying abilities that typically require years of specialized training to achieve. You were gone for 18 months. Even the most intensive programs couldn't produce these kinds of results in that time frame." Emma realized that Brooks had identified inconsistencies that threatened her cover identity. His technical knowledge and familiarity with her previous abilities made him capable of recognizing that her transformation exceeded what conventional training could accomplish. "Some people have natural capabilities that respond to specialized instruction in ways that exceed normal developmental timelines," she replied, providing an explanation that acknowledged his observations without revealing classified information. Conversation was interrupted by base-wide communications, announcing personnel reassignments for upcoming international deployments. Emma's assignment to Ramstein Air Base was confirmed, with departure scheduled for the following week. The timing ended Brooks' investigation while raising questions that would remain unanswered during her absence. As Emma prepared for deployment to Germany, she received final intelligence briefings through encrypted channels that revealed the full scope of her mission. The hostile infiltration network had established operations at 17 NATO installations, using compromised personnel and modified aircraft systems to gather intelligence on alliance military capabilities. "Your technical expertise provides perfect cover for accessing sensitive installations and identifying sabotage operations," Director Morrison explained through secure communications. "European military commanders will request your assistance with problems they can't solve through conventional maintenance procedures." Emma understood that her success would depend on maintaining her cover identity while conducting covert operations. That could prevent the compromise of NATO military technology. The mission would test whether someone could exist simultaneously in official military service and classified operations that shaped international security through methods that officially didn't exist. Her departure from Whitmore Air Force Base was marked by colleagues expressing admiration for her selection to prestigious international assignments while wondering about the transformation that had made such opportunities possible. Emma carried their questions with her as she prepared for operations that would determine whether Task Force Echo could eliminate threats that conventional military forces couldn't. Acknowledge the revelation phase was complete. Emma now understood the full scope of the hostile network that had killed her brother and threatened American military personnel worldwide. Her enhanced capabilities and cover identity positioned her to conduct operations that could neutralize threats that had operated with impunity for years. The real test of her transformation was about to begin. Ramstein Air Base in Germany operated under perpetual overcast skies that seemed to mirror the complexity of international military operations conducted within its sprawling complex of hangars and administrative buildings. Emma Chun arrived on a gray October morning, officially as part of NATO's technical standardization program, carrying credentials that identified her as an expert in advanced aircraft maintenance procedures. General Klaus Weber, Ramstein's commanding officer, greeted Emma with the mixture of professional courtesy and subtle skepticism that European military leaders typically reserved for American technical personnel. Sergeant Chen, we appreciate the United States Air Force sharing expertise that will enhance our operational capabilities. Our maintenance staff has been experiencing difficulties with aircraft systems that your specialized training might help resolve. Emma recognized the careful phrasing that indicated General Weber was dealing with problems that exceeded conventional maintenance expertise, while operating under political constraints that prevented acknowledging the true scope of those difficulties. Her classified briefings had identified Ramstein as a critical node in hostile intelligence operations that threatened NATO's technological superiority. The base's technical facilities contained aircraft from 6 different nations, creating maintenance challenges that required coordination between diverse engineering systems and operational protocols. Emma's assignment to the International Maintenance Division provided perfect cover for accessing sensitive equipment while investigating sabotage activities that conventional security measures couldn't detect. Chief Master Sergeant Francois Dubois, Ramstein's senior maintenance supervisor, escorted Emma through facilities that demonstrated the complex logistics of multinational military cooperation. American technical innovations have consistently exceeded European capabilities. Dubois acknowledged with professional admiration that masked deeper concerns. We hope your expertise will help us understand modifications that seem to improve aircraft performance beyond manufacturer specifications. Emma understood that Dubois was describing the same type of unauthorized system enhancements that had preceded aircraft failures at American installations. Hostile agents were using improved performance as cover for installing monitoring equipment and sabotage devices that could be activated remotely during critical operations. Her first assignment involved analyzing avionics systems on French Rafale fighters that had been experiencing intermittent navigation errors during training exercises. The problems appeared random and minor brief course deviations that corrected themselves automatically, but Emma's enhanced analytical capabilities recognized patterns that suggested systematic interference with GPS guidance systems. The navigation anomalies occur approximately every 47 flight hours, Emma reported to Dubois after completing diagnostic procedures that incorporated techniques learned through Task Force Echo training. The pattern suggests external signal interference rather than internal system malfunction. Dubois studied Emma's analysis with growing amazement. Her diagnostic report identified correlation patterns that his most experienced technicians had missed despite months of investigation. Sergeant Chun, how did you detect these patterns? Our computer systems analyze the same data without identifying any systematic inconsistencies. Emma's response balanced truth with operational security requirements. Advanced training programs taught me to look for irregularities that indicate external manipulation rather than internal failures. When navigation errors occur in predictable intervals, it suggests someone is testing system vulnerabilities. The explanation was accurate but didn't reveal that Emma's capabilities had been specifically developed to counter hostile intelligence operations that use sophisticated technology to compromise NATO military systems. Her training had included exposure to enemy techniques that conventional military personnel couldn't access through normal security briefings. Investigation of the Rafale navigation systems revealed microscopic modifications to antenna arrays that enabled external monitoring of flight paths and mission parameters. The unauthorized hardware was virtually undetectable without specialized scanning equipment, explaining why conventional maintenance procedures had failed to identify the sabotage. Who has access to this level of technical sophistication? Dubois asked as Emma documented evidence that would trigger international intelligence investigations. The precision required for these modifications exceeds anything available through normal commercial channels. Emma understood that Dubois was discovering the scope of hostile operations that had penetrated NATO installations across Europe. The same network that had killed her brother was using European military facilities to gather intelligence on alliance capabilities while preparing for operations that could disable Western air superiority during international crises. State-sponsored intelligence services with access to advanced manufacturing capabilities, Emma replied carefully. Organizations with resources and technical expertise that exceed most commercial contractors or independent criminal networks. Her investigation expanded to include aircraft from other NATO nations, revealing systematic compromise of military technology that threatened alliance security. German Eurofighters contained unauthorized signal transmitters. British Typhoons had been modified with devices that could override flight control systems. Italian aircraft showed evidence of fuel system alterations that could cause catastrophic failures during combat operations. The pattern was consistent with intelligence gathered at American installations where Task Force Echo had identified hostile infiltration. The same organization was using identical techniques across multiple continents, suggesting coordination between enemy intelligence services that exceeded anything Western counterintelligence had previously detected. Sergeant Chun, your diagnostic capabilities are remarkable, General Weber observed during a briefing where Emma presented evidence of systematic sabotage affecting aircraft from 6 different nations. Your analysis has identified threats that our combined intelligence services failed to recognize despite years of investigation. Emma realized that her discoveries were creating political complications that extended beyond technical maintenance. Issues: evidence of coordinated attacks against NATO military technology would require diplomatic responses that could escalate international tensions while revealing the extent of Western security failures. General, the modifications I've documented suggest ongoing operations rather than historical sabotage, Emma reported. The unauthorized hardware includes transmission capabilities that indicate real-time intelligence gathering. Someone is monitoring our aircraft performance and mission parameters continuously. The briefing room fell silent as the implications of Emma's analysis became clear. If hostile agents were conducting real-time surveillance of NATO military operations, they possessed intelligence capabilities that could compromise alliance security. During any international crisis, General Weber authorized immediate security investigations that would examine personnel with access to the compromised aircraft. But Emma's encrypted communications with Task Force Echo revealed that conventional counterintelligence measures would be insufficient to eliminate the threat. The hostile network includes personnel at levels that exceed normal security screening. Director Morrison informed Emma through disguised communications that appeared to be routine maintenance reports. base commanders, intelligence officers, and technical supervisors who have been compromised through methods that conventional background investigations cannot detect. Emma understood that eliminating the threat would require operations that exceeded her official authority as a maintenance technician participating in international technical exchange programs. She would need to transition from intelligence gathering to direct action operations that could neutralize hostile agents before they could escape or destroy evidence. The opportunity came during a maintenance emergency that required immediate response from international technical teams. A German Eurofighter had experienced flight control malfunctions during a training exercise, forcing an emergency landing that damaged aircraft systems beyond normal repair capabilities. Sergeant Chen, your expertise with advanced avionics makes you essential for emergency repair operations, Chief Dubois announced during crisis response procedures. The pilot reported control system anomalies that suggest the type of external interference you identified in other aircraft. Emma understood that the emergency provided cover for conducting operations that would expose and eliminate the hostile network's leadership. The damaged aircraft contained evidence that could identify infiltration methods while creating opportunities for confronting enemy agents directly. Working alone in the secure hangar where the damaged Eurofighter was undergoing emergency repairs, Emma activated equipment that appeared to be standard diagnostic tools but contained capabilities that existed beyond conventional military technology. The devices enabled her to trace electronic signals that revealed communication between unauthorized hardware and external control systems. Control signals are originating from Building 7 in the administrative complex, Emma reported through encrypted channels to Task Force Echo headquarters. Signal analysis indicates sophisticated command and control capabilities that exceed anything available through commercial technology. Director Morrison's response authorized immediate direct action operations. Eliminate hostile capabilities and personnel with extreme prejudice. Operational security requires complete neutralization of enemy assets before they can escape or destroy evidence. Emma realized that her mission had evolved from maintenance operations to combat assignments that would test every aspect of her specialized training. She would need to function simultaneously as Technical Sergeant Chen conducting emergency repairs and Alex Sterling eliminating threats that conventional military forces couldn't acknowledge. Building 7 contained administrative offices for international liaison personnel, providing perfect cover for hostile agents to monitor NATO operations while maintaining legitimate access to classified information. Emma's approach required infiltration techniques that exceeded anything available through normal military training, using capabilities developed through 18 months of classified preparation. Emma bypassed security systems that protected the building's most sensitive areas. Electronic locks that should have required administrative access codes responded to override commands that existed beyond normal authorization protocols. The hostile command center occupied basement, levels that didn't appear on official building. Schematics. Equipment that filled the underground facility demonstrated technological sophistication that exceeded Emma's understanding of current intelligence capabilities. Monitoring stations tracked NATO aircraft operations in real time, while communication systems maintained contact with agent networks across 3 continents. Impressive, isn't it? Said a voice behind Emma as she documented evidence that would trigger international counterintelligence operations. 5 years of development, unlimited funding, and personnel recruitment that exceeded our most optimistic projections. Emma turned to face a woman in civilian clothes who moved with confidence. That suggested extensive combat training. The woman's appearance was unremarkable, but her presence filled the underground facility with authority that indicated command responsibility for operations that threatened Western military security. Dr. Helena Kozlov, the woman introduced herself with an accent that suggested Eastern European origins. Principal Coordinator for operations that have eliminated 47 American military personnel and compromised NATO technological superiority to degrees that your intelligence services haven't begun to comprehend. Emma recognized the name from classified briefings that had identified Kozlov as the architect of intelligence operations had included her brother's murder. Standing in the hostile command center, she finally faced the person responsible for systematic attacks against American military personnel. "You killed my brother," Emma said quietly, her voice carrying the controlled rage that had motivated 18 months of transformation from maintenance technician to covert operative. Kozlov smiled with satisfaction that suggested she remembered Michael Chun's elimination as a particularly successful operation. "Your brother possessed capabilities that posed unacceptable threats to long-term intelligence gathering objectives. His death was necessary to protect operations that serve strategic interests exceeding individual American lives." The confirmation that Michael's murder had been deliberate rather than collateral damage triggered responses that Emma had been trained to control but not eliminate. Alex Sterling's combat capabilities activated with efficiency that reflected specialized preparation. For exactly this type of confrontation, the engagement was brief but decisive. Kozlov possessed training that exceeded conventional military standards, but Emma's enhanced capabilities included preparation for combat against opponents with superior experience and resources. Task Force Echo training had specifically focused on eliminating threats that conventional military personnel couldn't handle successfully. "Operations like this require systematic elimination," Emma said as she secured the hostile command center and activated communication systems that would summon Task Force Echo support personnel, people who coordinate attacks against American military personnel forfeit protection that normally applies to intelligence operatives. The facility contained intelligence that revealed the full scope of hostile operations conducted against NATO military capabilities. Database records showed coordination between enemy intelligence services that had exceeded Western counterintelligence assessments, while demonstrating technological capabilities that challenged assumptions about military technology balance. Emma's mission concluded with the arrival of Task Force Echo, technical teams that would analyze captured intelligence while eliminating evidence of operations that officially hadn't occurred. The hostile network's leadership had been neutralized, but the organization's technological capabilities would require ongoing vigilance to prevent reconstruction. "Outstanding performance, Alex," Director Morrison acknowledged through secure communications as Emma prepared for extraction from Ramstein Air Base. "Your success has eliminated threats that conventional military operations couldn't address while gathering intelligence that will protect American personnel for years." The mission's completion marked the end of Emma Chun's assignment to international technical exchange programs. Her official report would describe successful resolution of maintenance difficulties that had affected NATO aircraft systems. Unofficial assessments would acknowledge the elimination of hostile intelligence operations that had threatened alliance security. As Emma prepared to return to conventional military service, she understood that her transformation from support staff to ghost pilot had accomplished objectives that extended far beyond personal revenge for her brother's death. The capabilities developed through classified training programs had enabled protection of military personnel who would never know how close they had come to elimination by enemies who operated beyond acknowledged oversight. The final mission was complete. But Emma knew that her service in the spaces between official military operations and classified truth would continue as long as threats existed that conventional forces couldn't address through normal protocols. 6 months after the elimination of Dr. Helena Kozlov's intelligence network at Ramstein Air Base, Emma Chun returned to Whitmore Air Force Base, carrying secrets that would reshape how the United States military approached threats that existed beyond conventional warfare. The official record showed her successful completion of NATO technical exchange programs, with commendations for innovations that had revolutionized international maintenance cooperation. The classified reality documented operations that had prevented the compromise of Western military technology while eliminating hostile agents who had operated with impunity for years. Colonel Patricia Hayes observed Emma's final return with understanding that extended beyond normal command responsibilities. Hayes had been briefed on Task Force Echo operations through channels that bypassed congressional oversight, making her one of few conventional military officers who comprehended the scope of classified programs that protected American interests through methods that officially didn't exist. Technical Sergeant Chun, your international assignment generated exceptional results, Hayes acknowledged during a private debriefing that would never appear in official records. NATO military commanders specifically requested your permanent assignment to European operations, citing capabilities that exceeded their previous experience with American technical personnel. Emma understood that Hayes was describing offers that would have provided prestigious career advancement through conventional military channels, assignment to international headquarters positions, advanced technical education opportunities, and promotion tracks that could lead to senior leadership roles within established military hierarchies. Ma'am, I respectfully decline reassignment. Opportunities that would remove me from operational duties, Emma replied, her response carrying implications that Hayes recognized despite the carefully neutral phrasing. My technical capabilities are most effectively utilized in direct support of mission requirements that prioritize results over recognition. Hayes nodded approvingly, understanding that Emma's commitment to classified operations reflected values that couldn't be satisfied through conventional military advancement. The transformation from support staff to ghost pilot had created someone whose service existed in spaces between official acknowledgement and strategic necessity. Your decision is noted and approved, Hayes said, activating secure communication systems that would relay Emma's status to programs that operated beyond normal oversight. Your technical expertise will remain available for assignments that require capabilities exceeding standard protocols. The conversation concluded with the understanding that Emma Chun would continue functioning as a maintenance technician while Alex Sterling remained available for operations that shaped global security through methods that congressional committees preferred not to investigate. The dual identity had proven successful beyond Task Force Echo's initial projections. Returning to routine duties at Whitmore, Emma found that her enhanced capabilities had fundamentally changed how she experienced conventional military service. Aircraft maintenance procedures that had once required focused concentration now felt like elementary exercises that her enhanced training could complete with minimal conscious effort. Diagnostic problems that challenged her colleagues were resolved through intuitive understanding of system interactions that bordered on supernatural comprehension. Master Sergeant Morrison, who had struggled with maintenance efficiency during Emma's absence, welcomed her return with relief that demonstrated the practical impact of her specialized training. Chun, aircraft readiness rates have improved 15% since you came back from Europe. Whatever they taught you over there, it's made you even more effective than before. Emma's enhanced analytical capabilities enabled her to identify potential failure points weeks before conventional diagnostic systems could detect problems, preventing mechanical failures that could have endangered pilot safety. Her maintenance reports included recommendations for system modifications that improved aircraft performance beyond manufacturer specifications. Sergeant Chen has identified optimization opportunities that our engineering staff missed during design reviews, reported Captain Jennifer Martinez, Whitmore's aircraft systems officer, during monthly performance assessments. Her technical insights are generating patent applications for modifications that could revolutionize military aviation maintenance. The recognition created complications that Emma hadn't anticipated. Her exceptional performance attracted attention from research institutions and defense contractors, who offered lucrative positions that would have provided financial security and professional advancement beyond anything available through military service. MIT's Aerospace Engineering Department has requested your consultation on propulsion system research, Morrison informed Emma during a routine maintenance briefing. Lockheed Martin wants to discuss technical positions that would utilize your diagnostic expertise for next-generation aircraft development. Emma understood that accepting civilian opportunities would provide cover for ending her military service while transitioning to careers that matched her enhanced capabilities. But such positions would also remove her from the classified operations that gave her service deeper meaning than conventional employment could provide. I appreciate the offers, but my commitment is to military service that protects people who can't protect themselves, Emma replied, her response reflecting values that had been shaped by her brother's death and refined through 18 months of classified training. Her decision to remain in military service, despite attractive alternatives, demonstrated the psychological transformation that accompanied her technical enhancement. Emma Chun had become someone whose satisfaction derived from preventing tragedies rather than achieving personal advancement. The broader impact of her operations began manifesting through intelligence reports that revealed the collapse of hostile networks across multiple continents. The elimination of Dr. Kozlov's organization had triggered systematic failure of intelligence operations that had threatened American military personnel for years. 47 pending elimination operations were canceled following the destruction of coordination capabilities. Director Morrison reported through encrypted communications that appeared to be routine maintenance updates. Personnel who were targeted for accidental deaths have been quietly reassigned to protected positions that reduce their vulnerability to hostile activities. Emma learned that Captain Sarah Mitchell, whose F-35 mechanical failure had been prevented by Task Force Echo intervention, had been promoted to Squadron Command with responsibilities for training pilots in advanced threat recognition. The knowledge gained through her near elimination was being used to educate other military personnel about risks they couldn't identify through conventional security briefings. Your success has created opportunities for expanding protective operations, Director Morrison continued. Task Force Echo is authorized to recruit additional personnel with capabilities similar to yours, creating a network of ghost pilots who can respond to threats that conventional military forces cannot acknowledge. The revelation that Emma's transformation represented the prototype for larger programs filled her with mixture of pride and concern. Creating more operatives like Alex Sterling would enhance American military capabilities while requiring additional personnel to sacrifice normal lives for service that existed beyond official recognition. During her off-duty hours, Emma began developing training protocols that could identify personnel with potential for transformation into classified operatives. Her experience as someone who had successfully navigated the psychological challenges of dual identity provided insights that could help future recruits adapt to lives that existed between official military service and covert operations. Most critical factor is motivation that transcends personal advancement. Emma documented in training recommendations that would shape Task Force Echo recruitment procedures. Personnel who seek recognition or conventional career progression cannot maintain the psychological compartmentalization required for successful classified operations. Her analysis emphasized the importance of selecting individuals whose service was motivated by protective instincts rather than personal ambition. People who had experienced loss that created commitment to preventing similar tragedies in others. Technical specialists whose expertise was driven by understanding that mechanical failures cost lives rather than desire for professional advancement. The training protocols Emma developed would eventually be used to identify and develop dozens of operatives who served in roles that officially didn't exist. Maintenance technicians who possess supernatural diagnostic abilities, air traffic controllers who could coordinate aircraft movements in electromagnetic environments that would disable conventional systems, intelligence analysts who could detect patterns that computer systems missed. As her second year of dual identity service concluded, Emma received communications that revealed the strategic impact of operations that began with her brother's death and culminated in the elimination of threats that had operated with impunity for years. Intelligence gathered through your operations has enabled the identification and neutralization of 17 additional hostile networks, Director Morrison reported. Estimated prevention of 347 military personnel eliminations and compromise of classified technology worth approximately $47 billion. The statistics represented lives saved and national security protected through methods that would never be acknowledged in congressional hearings or military ceremonies. Emma understood that her service had accomplished objectives that exceeded anything available through conventional military operations, but the most significant impact was personal rather than strategic. Emma's transformation from support staff to ghost pilot had created someone whose technical expertise served purposes that honored her brother's memory while protecting military personnel who faced threats they couldn't detect or counter through normal training. Michael's death wasn't meaningless, Emma reflected during a private moment at Whitmore's memorial wall, where new names had been added to honor personnel lost during recent operations. His elimination led to capabilities that prevented dozens of similar tragedies. The understanding that tragedy could be transformed into protection for others had shaped Emma's commitment to service that existed beyond official recognition. Her enhanced capabilities would continue serving classified operations as long as threats existed that conventional military forces couldn't address through acknowledged methods. Colonel Hayes, who had initiated Emma's recruitment into programs that officially didn't exist, received final assessment reports that exceeded Task Force Echo's initial projections for operational success. Technical Sergeant Chun represents the ideal integration of technical expertise and covert capabilities, the assessment concluded. Her success demonstrates the viability of recruiting personnel from conventional military specialties for transformation into classified operatives whose service shapes global security through methods that maintain plausible deniability. The report recommended expansion of recruitment programs that could identify additional personnel with potential for similar transformation. Emma's success had proven that support staff with exceptional abilities could be developed into operatives whose capabilities exceeded anything available through conventional military training. As Emma continued her dual existence at Whitmore Air Force Base, younger personnel began arriving who seemed to possess technical abilities that exceeded their official training. Maintenance technicians whose diagnostic capabilities approached supernatural accuracy. Communications specialists whose system knowledge suggested exposure to classified technology. Personnel whose psychological profiles indicated readiness for service that extended beyond normal military operations. The program is expanding, Emma realized as she observed new arrivals whose capabilities and awareness patterns matched her own enhanced training. More people are being transformed to handle threats that conventional forces can't address. The recognition that she had become part of a growing network of classified operatives filled Emma with satisfaction that transcended personal achievement. Her service was creating protective capabilities that would shield American military personnel from threats they would never know existed. Technical Sergeant Emma Chun continued maintaining aircraft with precision that amazed her colleagues. Alex Sterling remained available for operations that shaped international security through methods that officially didn't occur. The dual identity had become natural, enabling service that honored her brother's memory while protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. Her story would never be told in official histories or acknowledged in military ceremonies. No medals would recognize operations that prevented international incidents. No commendations would document lives saved through actions that existed beyond congressional oversight. But in the spaces between official reality and classified truth, Emma Chun had become something that officially didn't exist, a ghost pilot, whose service protected the freedoms that democracy required, while operating through methods that democratic oversight couldn't acknowledge. The transformation was complete. The mission continued. And the legacy grew through each person who returned home safely. Because someone they would never meet had prevented tragedies. They would never know they had avoided. Support staff had become the invisible guardian, whose technical expertise and enhanced capabilities ensured that American military superiority remained protected by personnel whose service existed in the shadows where democracy's most difficult decisions were implemented by people who chose duty over recognition. Emma Chun's story ended where it began, with someone whose service mattered more than acknowledgement, whose capabilities exceeded official recognition, and whose commitment to protecting others defined a life that officially didn't exist, but made freedom possible for everyone whose existence was openly celebrated. In the end, the most important victories were the ones that never needed to be fought, because someone was prepared to prevent them through service that democracy required, but couldn't officially acknowledge. The ghost pilot's mission was complete, but her service would continue as long as freedom required protection through methods that existed beyond public understanding. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.